It started at a party, a wedding to be exact. This wasn't in a grand cathedral or a royal palace. It was in a small town called Cana, a place in Galilee you could easily miss on a map. Jesus was there. His mother, Mary, was there too, and he had just gathered his first disciples, a small group of guys who were still figuring out who this man really was. They were all invited guests, just part of the crowd. A wedding in that culture was a huge deal. It wasn't a 4-hour event with a DJ. It was a week-long celebration. The whole village would be involved. The family hosting the wedding was expected to provide food and drink for everyone for the entire time. It was a matter of honor. To run out of anything, especially wine, would be a massive social disaster. It would bring deep shame on the family, a stain they would carry for years. It was a failure of hospitality, a serious offense in their world, and that's exactly what happened. In the middle of the celebration, the wine ran out. You can imagine the quiet panic. The host whispering to the servants checking the empty wineskins. The dawning horror that they had failed. This was a moment of crisis, a small, domestic, but very real human problem, Mary noticed. Maybe she was helping in the background, or maybe she just had a mother's intuition. She saw the problem, and she knew who to turn to. She went to Jesus. Her words were simple. They have no wine. She didn't tell him what to do. She didn't demand a solution. She just stated the problem to him. It was an act of complete faith. She brought the need to him and trusted that he would handle it. Jesus' response seems a bit strange to our modern ears. He said, "Woman, what does this have to do with me? My hour has not yet come." The word woman sounds harsh to us, like he was being dismissive. But in his language, it wasn't. It was a formal, even respectful way to address a woman. It was the same word he would use for her with great tenderness when he was on the cross. So he wasn't being rude, but he was creating a little distance. He was gently saying that their relationship was changing. He was no longer just her son. He was beginning his public work, his mission from his father. The second part of his sentence is the key. My hour has not yet come. This phrase appears again and again in the Gospel of John. The hour refers to the ultimate purpose of his life, his suffering, his death, and his resurrection. It was the moment he would be glorified. He was operating on a divine timetable, not a human one. So, in this moment, he was saying, is this really the time to start? Is this how it begins? He was acknowledging that doing something here would be a step onto a path from which there was no turning back. It was the start of the clock ticking toward his hour, but Mary wasn't put off by his words. Her faith was unshaken. She seemed to understand something deeper in his response. She turned to the servants nearby and gave them a simple, powerful instruction. Do whatever he tells you. That sentence is a model of pure trust. She didn't know what he would do. His plan was a mystery, but she knew him, and she knew that obedience to him was the right path. She put her full confidence in him and instructed others to do the same. Nearby stood 6 large stone water jars. The Bible tells us they were there for Jewish ceremonial washing. Before a meal, guests would wash their hands and feet as a ritual of purification. These weren't small clay pots. Each one could hold 20 to 30 gallons of water. That's a huge amount. We're talking about a total of 120 to 180 gallons. Jesus looked at the servants. He gave them a strange command. Fill the jars with water. Think about that for a second. The problem was a lack of wine. The solution he offered was to get a massive amount of water. It made no logical sense. The servants could have argued. They could have said, "But sir, we need wine, not water." They could have rolled their eyes and walked away. But they didn't. They remembered Mary's words. Do whatever he tells you. So they did. They hauled bucket after bucket of water from the well and filled those 6 giant stone jars to the brim. It must have been hard work. It must have felt pointless, but they obeyed. Then Jesus gave them a second command even stranger than the first. Now draw some out and take it to the master of the feast. Imagine being one of those servants. You just filled a purification jar with ordinary well water. Now this man, Jesus, is telling you to scoop some of that water into a cup and serve it to the most important person at the party, the man in charge of the whole event. Your reputation, maybe even your job, is on the line. If you serve him water and call it wine, you will look like a fool. The host will be even more shamed. It was a huge risk. It required blind faith. And yet, they obeyed. One of the servants drew from the jar, walked through the crowd, and presented the cup to the master of the feast. The master took a sip. His eyes probably went wide. He had no idea where this came from. He didn't know about the crisis, about Mary's conversation with Jesus, or about the servants filling jars with water. All he knew was what he was tasting, and it was incredible. He called over the bridegroom, the man of the hour. He was smiling, maybe even laughing. Everyone serves the good wine first, he said, and when the guests have had too much to drink, they bring out the cheaper wine. But you have saved the best until now. This wasn't just good wine, it was the best wine, the finest wine they had ever tasted. The miracle happened quietly. There was no flash of light, no magic words, no grand announcement. One moment it was water. The next it was wine. It was a hidden miracle, known only to a few Mary, the new disciples, and the servants who had filled the jars. The Bible says this was the first of Jesus' signs, through which he revealed his glory, and his disciples believed in him. So, that's the story. But why does it matter? Why this miracle at this time, in this place? It's not just a nice story about Jesus saving a party. It's a profound statement about who he is and what he came to do. It sets the stage for everything that follows. First, this miracle shows Jesus' power over creation. This wasn't a healing. It wasn't casting out a demon. This was changing the very nature of a substance. He took H2O and transformed it into a complex organic compound. He bypassed the entire process of nature. He didn't need soil, a vine, sunshine, rain, grapes, a harvest, a wine press, or years of fermentation. He just did it. The one who created the world, who set the laws of physics and chemistry in motion, was now stepping into his own creation, showing that he was its master. The Gospel of John begins by saying, "In the beginning was the Word. All things were made through him." Here, in Cana, John is showing us that same creative power at work. It's a quiet but undeniable demonstration of his divinity. He's not just a good teacher or a prophet. He is the creator in the flesh. This sign was meant to reveal his glory, his true identity. And it worked. The disciples saw this and put their faith in him. It was the first piece of evidence that this man was who he said he was. Second, the miracle is about abundance. Think about the scale of it. They didn't just need a few more bottles of wine to get through the night. They were completely out, the party was in danger of ending in shame, and Jesus didn't just make enough. He made an overwhelming, extravagant amount, 180 gallons of wine. That's more than 700 modern-day bottles of wine. It was far more than they could ever need for that wedding. This tells us something fundamental about God's character and the nature of his kingdom. It's not a kingdom of scarcity. It's a kingdom of overflowing abundance. When God gives, he doesn't give just enough to get by. He gives lavishly, generously, more than we can ask or imagine. The problem was lack. The solution was a flood of grace, and it wasn't just the quantity, it was the quality. The master of the feast declared it to be the best wine. Jesus didn't make cheap, watered-down stuff. He made the finest vintage imaginable. This points to the quality of the new life he offers. It's not a second-rate existence, it's the very best, a life of richness and joy that surpasses anything the world can offer. He takes our emptiness and fills it with the best he has. Third, and this is perhaps the most important point, the miracle shows the new replacing the old. This is a living parable. Let's look at the symbols. The water was in stone jars used for ceremonial purification. This water represented the old way of the Jewish law, the Old Covenant. It was a system of rituals and rules designed to make people outwardly clean and acceptable before God. It was a good system given by God, but it was limited. It could clean the outside, but it couldn't change the heart. It was, in the end, just water. Jesus takes this very symbol of the old system, the water of ritual purification, and he transforms it. He turns it into wine. In the Bible, wine is almost always a symbol of joy, celebration, and new life. It's the drink of feasts and festivals. It's a symbol of God's blessing. So, what is Jesus doing? He is showing in a powerful physical way that he has come to replace the old system of religion with something new and alive. He is not just patching up the old way. He is not just adding a new rule. He is fundamentally transforming it from the inside out. The water of the law is being replaced by the wine of the gospel. The old covenant of works is being fulfilled and replaced by the new covenant of grace. The life he brings is not a life of grim, dutiful ritual. It's a life of joy and celebration like a wedding feast. The master of the feast comment, "You have saved the best until now," is the punchline of the whole parable. The old way, the law, came first. It was good. But what Jesus brings, the gospel of grace, is far better. He has saved the best for last. This first miracle is a declaration of his mission to bring in a new era of God's relationship with humanity, an era of joy and abundance. Fourth, the miracle shows that God cares about ordinary life. Where did Jesus choose to begin his public ministry? Not in the temple in Jerusalem, not in a synagogue, not on a mountaintop delivering a sermon to the masses. He started it at a wedding reception, a party. This is so important. It tells us that God is not separate from our everyday lives. He is not just interested in the religious parts of our week, like when we are in church or reading the Bible. He is present and active in the mundane, the ordinary, the human. He cares about family, friendship, community, and celebration. He cares about a young couple's wedding day and their family's honor. By performing his first miracle here, Jesus sanctified the ordinary. He showed that our normal lives, with our joys and our very real problems, are the stage where God chooses to work. He meets us where we are, in our homes and at our parties. He doesn't demand that we clean ourselves up and come to a holy place to meet him. He comes into our messy, everyday world and brings his transforming power there. He drinks with us, he celebrates with us, and when our joy runs out, he provides more. This is a God who is deeply, wonderfully human and who loves to be with his people. Fifth, the story points forward to Jesus' ultimate purpose. Remember his words, "My hour has not yet come." This first sign, this first miracle, actually starts the clock on that hour. And it's filled with foreshadowing. The transformation of water into wine points to the ultimate transformation he will bring through his death and resurrection, the transformation of death into life. And think about the symbol of wine itself. Later at the Last Supper, on the night before he died, Jesus would take a cup of wine and say, "This is my blood of the new covenant, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sin." The wine at the wedding in Cana is a symbol of joy and new life at the beginning of his ministry. The wine at the Last Supper is a symbol of his sacrificial death, the very act that makes that new life possible. The first miracle points to the last act. The celebration at the wedding is a foretaste of the great celebration in heaven, the marriage supper of the Lamb, which is made possible only because of the blood he shed. The joy of Cana points to the deeper, eternal joy of salvation. His first sign, providing the wine of celebration, is intimately connected to his final hour, where he provides the wine of redemption. Finally, we have to look at the human element in the story, the roles people played. Mary's role is crucial. She is the catalyst. She doesn't solve the problem herself. She simply sees the need and brings it to Jesus. She is a model of intercession and faith. She knows where to go for help, and even when his answer is cryptic, she trusts him completely. Her instruction, "Do whatever he tells you," is advice for all time. It is the very essence of a life of faith. Then there are the servants. They are the unnamed, unsung heroes of the story. The miracle could not have happened in the way it did without their obedience. They followed a series of strange, illogical commands. They did the hard, humble work of hauling the water. They took the social risk of serving it to the master of the feast. Their simple, practical faith was the channel through which the miracle flowed. It reminds us that God often calls us to do simple, seemingly small acts of obedience, and it is through those acts that he does his greatest work. We don't have to understand the whole plan. We just have to do whatever he tells us. So Jesus' first miracle was so much more than turning water into wine. It was a statement of intent. It happened in an ordinary place to solve an ordinary problem, but it revealed an extraordinary truth. It revealed that Jesus is the creator God, with power over the natural world. It revealed that his kingdom is one of extravagant abundance and overflowing grace, giving us not just what we need, but the very best. It revealed that he came to bring something new, to replace the old rituals with the new life and joy of the gospel. It revealed that he is a God who is present in our everyday lives, who cares about our joys and sorrows, and who loves to celebrate with us. And it revealed, in a subtle way, the ultimate purpose of his life, pointing forward to the sacrifice he would make, the shedding of his blood, which makes our new life in him possible. The story starts with a lack, an emptiness, the wine is gone, and it ends with an overwhelming fullness, with the best wine they had ever tasted. That is the story of the gospel in miniature. Jesus steps into our emptiness, our lack, our shame, and through a quiet miracle he transforms it. He takes the plain water of our ordinary lives and turns it into the rich wine of his grace and joy. He saves the best for last. That's why it matters. It was the beginning of everything.